On February 15th, 1990, Detective Dennis Wustenhoff of the Suffolk County Police Department in Long Island, New York, was murdered as he entered his unmarked undercover police car. Dennis was an undercover narcotics officer working in the area and had been in this assignment for some time. The cause of death was an extreme trauma as the result of a pipe bomb, which was concealed either under the seat or under the vehicle, but either way, it's the cause of Dennis's death. Well, please welcome Jennifer Wustenhoff-Leese and Melissa Wustenhoff-Skelsey. They are the daughters of Detective Dennis Wustenhoff. Ladies, thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you, Mike, so much for having us. We're so grateful to be here.
Well, it is really an honor. Now, your brother, Kevin, is a full-time police officer, but he's unable to join us today for the interview. But I know that you'll be able to speak for him in some way. So thank you. I actually challenged Jen a few nights ago to go to Netflix, one of our favorites here at Profiling Evil, and actually watch some of The Keepers, which was the murder of Sister Katherine Cesnik in Baltimore. And the thing that was so remarkable is I've become friends with some women who were actually children, students of Sister Katherine in 1969 when she was murdered. And they, like you two, chose to never have that case go cold. And it's been quiet and unsolved for this many years. Your dad's case has been 31 years now. Melissa, what caused you to think Facebook? And Jen, how's this thing all working?
So it's funny because, been on Facebook all these years and I don't really know why, I didn't do it sooner, but as Facebook has kind of evolved with groups and things like that, not just, friendships and things on there. And what happened was last year, the kind of like that 30-year mark for us, that 30-year anniversary, it's always like leading up to that, whatever anniversary it is of his death is always, okay, here we go. It's, Halloween passes and you're approaching the holidays and November, December, you're like, oh, February's coming. And it's like in those months. And I'm like, I spend a lot of time on Facebook. Why not, kind of take that and use that and that drive of just, sadness, anger, frustration, all those, typical kind of feelings, why not just, I don't know, so let's, kind of start a Facebook page, almost like selfishly kind of just for us to like, hey, share some memories and put this out there. And then it just kept like, well, actually instantly got such a great response from all these people joining. And then it was just like growing and growing and all these people like, along the way being like, what do you mean? This isn't solved, and now like all the feelings that we've been feeling all along, we're learning all these other people have similar feelings or, confused or they don't understand. What do you mean this isn't solved? Or, even if it's a complete stranger. I mean, there's plenty of people we know on the page, but there are so many people that we've met through the page, whether they were local and, local or just a police officer or a local neighbor or someone out of state that's just intrigued by this and they don't understand, or they just came across it. Like there's just such a variety of people there with kind of all the same feelings, which is weird because not that you want other people to feel like what you feel, but it's like a sense of like, oh, wow, I'm not alone in this. We're not alone.
That's a really important thing to hear, that you're not alone in this. Jen, what's been the surprises and the surprise interactions that you've had with people on the Facebook page?
I've learned so many things from people I didn't really realize until now how many people were affected, as my sister was describing. I even learned as recent as just a couple weeks ago that there were other families the day that it happened that were pulled out of their jobs and their children were pulled out of school, and they had bomb sniffing dogs at their houses and they were afraid. And I literally just found this out. So it reaches so many people, and we were young, so we didn't really think about it in that way because we were just being sad, or fearful or angry. And it affected the neighborhood. It affected the local businesses. Our teachers have memories, our friends' parents. And I now can sort of reflect on the size of what happened and realize that it is a big deal that this happened, and it is crazy that it's unsolved.
Yeah, as we dig into this, we're going to continue to push everyone back to look at all of those old news reports, because you'll learn more about potential suspects. And we're going to, frankly, focus more on Dennis and the impact on your family, and let people go see who those individual suspects and the focused suspect in this case is. But I wanted to just, one of the first things that we do when we look at an unsolved case from a profiling perspective is we want to do what we call a victimology. Who is this individual that was victimized, and why did they become a victim? And it really, you think about it, Ray, as cops, it seems like when we have a homicide, the first question we ask is the whodunit. And really what we should be asking is, who is the victim and why did they become a victim? And your dad, ladies, was Dennis Wustenhoff, a military veteran who served in Vietnam. He did well in school. He goes into the military. He serves faithfully in the military. I know that he got a Silver Star, but I think I read that your dad was also injured. So I don't know if he received the Purple Heart at all when he was in Vietnam, but he was also exposed to Agent Orange. And then through all of this, he gets put into military policing, which just turns on the light switch to become a cop when he gets home. What else can you tell us about your dad?
Well, you mentioned that he was affected by Agent Orange, so he did develop cancer. I have some vague memories of him going through what I now know was his chemo. I can remember him being sick or going to the hospital. What I didn't know then, but I know now, is that he was very dedicated to his job. He never took a day off during all of his chemo. He would just work it around his work schedule or weekends or whatever he needed to do. He did love his job so much. And then as a result of recovering from cancer, he decided that he needed to stay in shape. So he became an avid runner. He ran every day. He ran in races. I think they were like 10K races, not like the New York City Marathon, but, everyone in the neighborhood would see him running all the time. So he was known to be a jogger in the neighborhood. There's a bunch about him that people don't realize that we do start to talk about in these last few years. He loved to go hunting. We had many a meal that he hunted. We had deer, we had goose, we had boar.
But he was a dad who was deeply involved in the family, wasn't he? I mean, you kids, he wasn't a missing in action dad. He was at home at night and doing stuff with you.
You knew like he had an important job, and everybody knew that, even like our friends, and like he was like the cool dad, or maybe at least I just thought that he was the cool dad, but it always seemed like everybody kind of like felt that because he was like cool. He was, he had this like cool job, but he also was like joking around all the time, whether you were, one of our friends at that age, young kids, or, joking around to other adults. He was always, you can ask anyone that knew him, they would say that he was like the life of the party, center of attention, jokes, pranks. I know I know that he's pranked people a lot of times, like at work. Maybe Ray would remember some of that, but, he was very, deep in his job, but very, much into his family. You never, at least I didn't feel this way. I never felt that he was, where's daddy? We're missing out, He made sure to show up to your concerts, your game, your baseball game. Maybe he was a little even too rowdy at the game, right, Jen? Like, he would be the one that's making it known that he's there. Like, he's gonna root for Jen when she's playing on her whatever, volleyball, basketball, So he was there. He went to the recitals. I never felt that. I don't, from my understanding, my sister, my brother never felt like, oh, daddy wasn't there. He was there no matter what. He made it work. So
now I want to take you to the night before Dennis's death, and it was Valentine's Day, 1990. And your dad proved what kind of a dad he was, Melissa, because this was one more example where he could have been out with a CI or buying dope somewhere, but he chose to stay home and go to a daddy-daughter Valentine's dance. What does that mean to you?
It's kind of gets you right here. It's like, I'm just very happy that I have that, last moments with him. As far as I know, he was supposed to go to work that night or that day. And he chose to take me to the father-daughter dance. And that's what he did. And we had a great night. People remember, even, talking to people over the years, they remember seeing him and at the dance, and, he knew all the, parents and stuff like that. And, I always kind of compare it to, like, I didn't get to dance with him at my wedding, but at least I had, that night with him.
So darn special. And I'll tell you, I mean, it was hard for me to even mention it, knowing what a daddy-daughter dance meant to me and what a dance meant to me when my daughter got married. So I can tell you he missed it. Jen, I'd like you to maybe take a second and tell us what was going on in your dad's life at that time that was concerning, because there was question about whether Valentine's Day was actually the day that the killer hoped that your dad would have triggered that bomb in his car. And then, if you would, talk about the ages of you and your siblings when this happened.
Okay, well, for starters, I'm the oldest, so I was 14. My brother Kevin was 12, and my sister was 10. So we were all pretty young. My sister being 10, that I hate that part. But when I do think about that, we think for Valentine's Day, based on who the prime suspect is, it makes sense. And just knowing that I walked to school every day and I walked right past the car. Or every now and then he would let me warm up the car for him. We never ever went in the car. He kept it strictly for work, always. I don't think we ever rode in any of his police cars ever. So whoever did this did know that we would never be in the car. But it was parked out front of the house, so we walked by it every day. So I do think
you would actually go out and sometimes start it for him. I mean, that's pretty close to home for you.
Yeah. I mean, not on the regular, but occasionally, because I was, I guess, getting older, and that was exciting for me. Oh, can I start one of the cars and warm it up for you guys? I felt like I was cool, I guess. I don't know. But to think that, what if it was that day? Or, what if when I walked by the car that day, if I bumped into it, I mean, I would walk down the driveway and walk past the car. I don't know, maybe what if that happened? And it would scare me a lot for a long time. But I do feel that the person or persons who did this got what they wanted. So I don't have the same fear today as I did then. But it is pretty scary to know that there was a bomb sitting out in front of my house for, I don't know, a day, 2 days, 3 days. Who knows? We don't.
I know that in reading the newspaper accounts that a neighbor actually saw one of the suspects, the primary suspect in this case, in a vehicle that was very similar to a vehicle driven by the suspect in this case, including an exact match on the license plate. But that was a day or two before, so that actually put children playing and others at risk in that neighborhood for a couple of days. What do you remember about that? And then I think it's really important to call out sometimes the elephant in the room about why you think that vehicle was targeted.
Okay. And he was having an affair with the wife of at the time, Nassau County police officer. And Nassau County is the bordering county to Suffolk. So it's really, very close. So he was having an affair with this guy's wife. And
there were actually testimony of former partners that even suggested that he had made death threats as he learned, this suspect in the case. But didn't one of your neighbors actually identify a vehicle that had a matching plate in the neighborhood?
I mean, so that's one of the things is they see that vehicle. I'm not exactly sure of date, time. I'd have to kind of look back at things. There were some other instances where people thought maybe they saw him at, the gas station. So there's kind of two different times. One is where they think they see that vehicle driving on a street close to our house at the time. And then a separate time where this, I'm not sure if she was I don't know exactly where she lived, this person, but she saw him at the gas station. I think it was the days before, leading up to.
If I understood what I've read, you kids were in school, your mom was working, and your dad goes out, he gets in the vehicle to go to work, starts the engine, or no, he doesn't even start the engine. I think the bomb is detonated by him sitting on the seat. So there's some kind of a compression switch, but nonetheless, the bomb doesn't kill your father, but the trauma from a bomb blast is so horrendous that I think I even heard Kevin speaking once when he talked about the fact that the medical examiner reported just the blunt trauma that it caused to your father. But it really injured his lower extremities a lot, and he was saved at the scene and taken to the hospital, and they were able to keep him alive and long enough to get you kids out of school. As the oldest child, Jen, this is a huge responsibility that falls on, sadly, the oldest kids to kind of help mom hold things together. But talk through what happened, where you were, and how that final chance to visit with your dad was before he died.
Well, I was in 9th grade, and I remember that I had just changed for gym class, and I went and I sat down in my spot. And before class even started, my gym teacher, who was also my coach, so we knew each other well, she came rushing over to me and grabbed me and said, "You need to go down to the main office." And as a 9th grader, you immediately think you're in trouble for something, even though generally I didn't get in trouble. But I was like, okay, oh my goodness, what's happening? And when I went to leave, she said, no, no, no. You need to go change back into your regular clothes. I don't think you're coming back to gym class. And then I thought I was in really bad trouble. So I was a nervous wreck. I changed as fast as I could. And I hurried to the main office. When I got there, there were police officers standing there in the office. And they were in uniform, and I could see out the window their police cars were out there. And it was confusing because I thought I was going there to get in trouble. And then there were police officers, and they walked me into the room where they were. Now, I don't know if it's because I was young or nervous or what, but they just seemed tall and broad, and they weren't speaking. And I was petrified because I was being told now that my dad was in a car accident and I needed to go with these officers right away. So I was like, okay, a car accident. All right. So I get in their car. Actually, they had, shortly after I got to the office, they called my brother. We were in the same school. We were in middle school. They called him down. I think he had a similar feeling or reaction when he saw the officers, and we were just confused. So we got in the car, in the backseat of the marked police car, and we drove high speed, lights and sirens, and the car actually drove us right past my neighborhood, and I could see up the streets. I don't think they meant any harm by it, but I could see the yellow tape, the police line, do not cross. We then proceeded to turn down another street because at this point we were heading to my sister's elementary school to pick her up. And I could see more tape and I could see lights, but I was like, wow, that seems like a lot for a car accident. And our neighborhood was really very quiet, slow moving vehicle type neighborhood. A car accident of any magnitude would have been surprising. So we are now just scared and confused, and we get to my sister at the elementary school, and I'm not really sure what they told her. I think the same. And then she got in the car and sat on my lap, and she was crying and upset. And we just went super fast, lights and sirens, to the hospital. And they brought us straight to the emergency room area where they normally have ambulances pull up. And I just remember seeing a sea of faces. Honestly, it's a blur. I just remember just seeing a bunch of people there. I've learned it was, fellow officers and things of that nature. And while this was all happening, they were simultaneously picking up my mom. She was working at another school district, another school in our same district. They were also picking her up, lights and sirens, going to the hospital. So we were separated from her for a little bit. And then when we got there, it was just chaos and fear. And we finally got with our mom. And we were there for a little while before we found out what happened. I can remember the doctors or the surgeons or whoever sitting us down at this conference table. And they just told us, with my mom there, they said it was a car bomb. A bomb blew up in front of your house. And it really didn't make sense. If I even think back to it now, it didn't make sense. My mind went to a movie. And I was like, a what? A bomb? And I've said this before, but it still didn't occur to me that he would die. I just thought, okay, well, he's in surgery and it might be a little while. And, I can't wait to see him later and, make sure everything's good. And geez, he's probably going to be here for a little while, maybe overnight for a few nights. Like, I really didn't understand it. And then, later on, we found out that he passed, and my mom screamed in the hallway, and that's how we knew.
Melissa, you would have been in about the 4th or 5th grade. What was your experience?
It was, February, so it was cold and gray. And we didn't go out for recess at that time. So my class had joined up with the other classes in the grade, and we were watching a movie inside one of the classes. And I was, like I was saying, talking to some of my friends next to me, as I always did. And, you know, I got called out of the classroom by one of my teachers, and I thought for sure, like, unlike Jen, who I was, you know, getting in trouble for talking quite often. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was known as a chatty Cathy type. I just couldn't resist chatting. So I thought, okay, here we go. I'm getting in trouble. And then my teacher kind of pulled me over to our classroom and said, you know, you have to get your stuff, and, you know, Dad's been in an accident. And I was like, well, what do you mean Dad's been in an accident? Like a car accident? And I just remember, like, already feeling like inquisitive, like I don't understand this. What do you mean an accident? Like car accident? And he's like, yeah. And I said, where? He said, yeah, somewhere near your house. And looking back, I could tell he was trying to brush me off a little, but also kind of, I had a good relationship with him. He was such a great and caring teacher. And, you know, I just remember standing there and, you know, him helping me put my backpack on and feeling so small. And then him saying, you know, we got to go downstairs and wait. And I don't really remember, you know, too much explanation of that because, you know, obviously that day my brain blocks out a lot of things, but, I just remember like not understanding and him saying, okay, we have to go down to the office. And I'm like, okay. I don't think at that point he said police officers are coming to get you. He was just kind of like, let's go wait in the principal's office. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like no one ever goes like in this room. I never saw this room before in the school, you know, and I'm waiting in this room. And all of a sudden these police officers show up and I'm like, you know, I just remember I was crying hysterically. Not understanding what's going on, feeling scared. Obviously, like something like this happens and you're not with your family, you're not with your mom, your siblings. And, you know, and I remember saying to him, because it's my teacher, you know, like, I want you to come and you come with me or whatever, you know, and he was like, you know, okay. And so the police officers come in and get me. And like Jen says, think the same kind of thing, thinking they were like so big, you know, but I wonder where those cops are now. They're probably not that big, but you know, like them seeming just like, you know, dark uniform and getting into the back of some police car and then getting in the police car and, you know, my brother and sister are in there. What do you mean? Like, it was just every like step of the way was just getting like weirder and worse and questions and why are they in this car already? And I just remember, you know, crying hysterically and Jen, like she said, holding me and her just saying like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And I tried to trust that. And I was just like, okay, I'm with my brother and my sister now. I feel better. So sorry. So then, you know, I just remember my teacher was like, I'll follow you. And I don't know, that gave me some sense of comfort too. And I remember he had like that old station wagon with like the wood paneling on it. And I remember like just looking behind me and like just making sure, okay, he's following us. We're going to the hospital and just keep looking back. And now we're, you know, in like a regular residential neighborhood. And I'm like, okay, he's still behind us. So now we get on kind of like, we finally get on to like Nichols Road, which is like I don't know what you want to call it. It's kind of a highway, faster speed, no traffic lights type of a, you know, there's little exits on and off or whatever. So I'm like, we kind of like merge onto that. And I just remember like looking behind me and checking, he's still there. And as soon as we get on that road, it was just like weird. Like they floored it. And I just remember the sound of like the police car and how like that engine like was so like that, you know, that sound of a police car. It's like that deep engine sound and just flying. And I just remember like, I just knew at that point something is bad. something is not good. Why are we like he floored it. And I just remember looking behind me and like seeing that station wagon just getting smaller and smaller and smaller because he was getting further and further away. And like Jen said, we get to the hospital in minutes. I mean, I've never gotten to this hospital this fast in my life. We were there in no time, and walking in, and same thing, like just, lots of people and confusion and craziness, and learning that, like she said, lots of, cops, colleagues, supporting people, media. It was just like, filing us through, and I'm still just, I think there's like a quote somewhere in the paper. It's just like Melissa just standing there with her backpack on. Like, I'm just this little kid with my backpack. Like, what's going on? And then they kind of just file us into some like secretary's office. Like, who goes in a hospital in a secretary's office? Like some random room where they hid us from everybody in this tiny, tiny little room. And that basically we just had to like wait for, we didn't get to, I know you kind of wondering of like last moments and stuff, but unfortunately we did not get to see him at the hospital. And, we just kind of waited and waited for there. And that's kind of like a key thing that I like to point out. And on the page, we talk about like how, it's like 3 hours from the time that this bomb goes off to hit him dying. And a lot of people don't know that there were 3 hours that he was alive. There was 3 hours that he was alive. And he was aware of what happened to him. And that's like something my brother, he was conscious. He was, pulled out of the car by a neighbor who, tried to save his life. Just craziness there, but he was alive for a little bit, and he knew like what happened to him. And, that's the sad part. I'm glad he got, to kind of say some words and things like that and express his feelings and whatnot. But, he was alive, and it died in a very painful, kind of horrific way. He didn't just get shot and he died instantly. My brother talks about this, about how, pieces of the car were in his body, and it's kind of gruesome and gross and horrible to talk about. But that's important for people to understand that somebody kind of planned this and chose this kind of ending for his life.
Yeah, it was incredibly violent. Did Jen, did your mom get a chance to talk to your dad before he died, or be with him for a moment before he died? They were so busy trying to save him, I guess.
Yeah, he went straight into trauma, and from what I understand, they worked really hard to save him. We've heard stories from people that we don't even know, little tidbits, and they, have knowledge, whether firsthand, secondhand, third hand, that, they worked real hard.
And did your dad say anything that he wanted passed on to you kids or to your mom?
From what I understand, he did say, tell my family I love them. Tell my kids I love them. I believe those were some of his last words, because then at that point he was being brought by ambulance to a helicopter, and I think he may have been unconscious at that point. Yeah.
Ladies, I've attended too many police funerals, but I've never been there as a child of the person being laid to rest. What can you help people understand about a police funeral, and frankly, the lack of control a family has when a police funeral happens?
Well, for me, and I guess I would assume my brother and sister, but For me, it was the very first funeral I had ever gone to. So all of the grand aspect of it, there were thousands of police officers there. There were bagpipes. There were 21 gun salute, taps, helicopters. At the time, in addition to all that normal fallen officer ceremony, there was a crime that happened. So we were in hiding. We weren't allowed to come outside of the funeral home. There were snipers on the roof on the funeral home. There were snipers on the roof on the building across the street. We had to cover ourselves coming in and out. So it was very scary. And, the funeral itself with the police motorcade and all of that, it was eerily beautiful. And then for me, when a couple of years later, unfortunately, I had to go to a friend passed away, and it was your average wake and funeral. And I was like, well, where's everyone else? I didn't understand that the size of my dad's wasn't the norm. And for its time, it was quite a sizable funeral, and it was front page news every day. And those types of things were confusing. We were trying to digest and process our sadness. And at the time we had fear, and, it was just a whole new world for us. We had to.
Yeah. What was this like for you, Melissa? And one of the things that I read that really touched me was that you three as children were not willing to leave the graveside once the thing was over.
I personally don't remember that specifically, because like I said, a lot of it is just so, it makes me upset because I feel like I should remember some things, but I also think my mind kind of purposely like erases things and blocks it out so I don't have to remember that. But I do like the same kind of memories that Jen has, feeling like, wow, holy cow. Afterwards, realizing, there was like 5,000 cops, and that was just, at one time. But throughout the week, like family and friends, the line was it was just crazy. I mean, it's weird because it felt overwhelming, and you knew it was a lot of people, but like you didn't know any different. So it's like you had nothing else to compare it to, but you knew something was different. And, you're just, like she said, you're trying to process everything and grieve, and you're sad and you're scared and you're, worried about your mom and because she's so sad. And, but at the same time, everybody's in your face, there's all these people there, and it's great in one aspect because you have all the support from fellow police officers and family and friends. But like, it was always like there was somebody there. Like even going back to school was just like, I remember walking in the lunchroom after returning to school and feeling like, maybe people weren't looking at me, but I felt like they were. Like I literally felt like the whole cafeteria was looking at me, and maybe some were, and they probably felt bad, but I just remember feeling like, oh, what is everybody, thinking, and, feeling, it was just very, very strange. And something like that happening to you so early on too, it just sticks with you. Anytime you hear a bagpipe or a helicopter going over, it's weird. It's like I have this weird obsession with helicopters. I don't know why. Like, I don't know, but it's the sound just reminds you, it brings you to a place where you were so like, freshly wounded. So all those sounds and smells and things like that, it's weird. It just stays with you forever. Like it happened, yesterday.
Something really special happened for your brother, Kevin, who went on to become a Suffolk County police officer. A few years ago, he was awarded your father's shield. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, he, like you mentioned, he's a Suffolk County police officer. He had always wanted to follow in our dad's footsteps. So when he got on the job, the whole family was, of course, very proud of him. And, he does well, and we wish for his happiness and safety on the job always. But at one point in time, he was able to have or receive my dad's badge, which he now wears to this day. So he doesn't just wear, though, my dad's badge number. He wears my dad's actual badge. So they did have a ceremony for it at headquarters, and my mom was able to pin that on him herself. And so that's something that makes, us all proud that he can have that, to wear.
That is such an amazing and wonderful story to both Melissa, Jen, and to Kevin. The beauty of what you're doing is reminding that killer to never stop looking over his shoulder, because you really are making a big difference. The Facebook page is Justice for Dennis Wustenhoff. And folks, I hope that you will all go to Facebook and sign up and join that group. But these kinds of things cost a little bit of money too. Jen, Melissa, how can people help? Is there a way to donate through the Facebook page or through a GoFundMe or anything?
With the reward right now, it's kind of like combined through different parties' efforts, like Crime Stoppers, the Suffolk County PBA, the Suffolk County SDA, and the Suffolk County SOA, along with some private donors. So there's people that can choose to kind of donate in that aspect. We're trying to kind of figure out a different, if we kind of add to it that in that way, or we're still working out the kinks on that to see if we can kind of raise that reward money. Like Ray said, all it takes is just, there could be someone that's got that little bit of information, and, maybe their life is in a challenging place right now. And that's enough for them to give their tip and just move away, and whatever they got to do, pay off their bills and get out of here, whatever. Whatever it takes, reward or not. I mean, whether there's a reward or not, we're not giving up. That's kind of the special thing about the Wustenhoff family.
So powerfully said, Melissa, and your dad is just jumping up and down up there clapping for you. So just keep banging the drum. And Jen, I want you to just take a moment. Again, folks, the place you want to go is Justice for Dennis Wustenhoff on Facebook. Join the group and send them a note. Let these two wonderful women know that you joined because of listening to Profiling Evil, so that they know that these kinds of efforts are paying off. And then as you set up and have expenses, I hope you'll set up a GoFundMe or something, because this true crime community really does not only want to help you spread the message, but some people are in a position that they do want to give a few dollars to help you as you do things. So hopefully you'll have a place for that. But Jen, I want to give you, as the oldest daughter, the last word. What does tomorrow hold for the Wustenhoff kids as you pursue justice for your dad?
We're trying to get together and have, in a positive way, a walk or vigil type of situation to honor my dad's memory, to bring awareness to the fact that the case is unresolved. And we think we're going to do that at a local beach, and we're going to be putting out some information about that as soon as we can. And perhaps some of your viewers will join us. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually said that we could kind of do something, because a lot of people, we kind of talked about it a little bit on the group, and, people said, oh, I'm out of state or whatever. I said, you know what, I'll try to figure out a way to virtually include people in some kind of like a Facebook Live or something like that. And, whatever it is, they're showing their support, kind kind of don't know exactly how it's going to be, but we want to do something that shows, hey, look, yeah, we're not just a Facebook group. We're actual people that care. And there's a lot of people who are not okay with this being unresolved, but also like doing it in memory of and keeping it nice too. So it's kind of like two sides of the card here, I guess, you know.
Do it after July, and maybe I can find a reason to visit one of the local police departments out there, and I'll come walk with you.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that would be fun. So, Jen, what's next?
We're just gonna, keep on keeping on. Like my sister said, we don't give up. We will never give up. We cannot give up. This is our dad, and I don't think anyone out there would give up on their dad. And I could tell you our dad would not have given up on us. So we're going to keep pressing the police department. We're going to keep pressing the DA's office. We're going to keep pressing the FBI, who's now involved. We're going to keep being annoying or squeaky until we get that oil. And that's what we have to do for our dad. And we think they're starting to get it. But also, as you mentioned, we hope the person or persons who did this can't sleep at night, maybe just a little bit, because they're always wondering, is tomorrow the day? Is tomorrow the day that they get me? Because we're not going to stop till that happens.
Well, we as a true crime community are going to be hoping that tomorrow is the day. Folks, we've been talking about Detective Dennis Wustenhoff, who was murdered on February 15th, 1990. That is just amazing to think of. 31 years that your family has lived without your father playing a part in your lives, but he has never left your lives. And that's the really comforting thing, I think, and you probably all can attest to that he has been with you all along. He served our country valiantly. He was a decorated soldier. He conquered cancer, and he was an incredible undercover officer for the Suffolk County Police Department before he was murdered by a pipe bomb, and tragically by probably someone who knew him very well. And we hope and pray that you get the resolution that you need. To Dennis's children, one thing we do have is a Monday night choir practice that you are always welcome to come on for a couple of minutes and give us an update and tell us when the next march is or the next change in the investigation. So I hope that you'll do that. And I hope you'll know how much I deeply appreciate the sacrifice your family has made so that all of us have a safer community and that we get to hear about this amazing father that you had. Folks, I hope you'll continue to follow Profiling Evil on any of your favorite podcast platforms. You can also check out our Mapping Evil with Mike King, which is now reaching the top 5 to 13 in Southeast Asia, which is just crazy to me. And of course, as always, you're welcome to visit us at profilingevil.com. And for all of us at Profiling Evil, I want to just extend my thanks and say, and I'm going to give you all the last word, will you please come back?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for giving us this platform to share our story and keep his name and keep the word out there. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much to anyone who's listening.
What an honor. We're humbled by your service and your dad's service. And for two old guys that had the privilege of retiring in what we believe is a really noble profession, we want you to know how much your father means to us. And I never even met the guy. But there's just something that cops have. And so it's a privilege to become part of your family.